All right, guys. It's been a while now since we've done another one of these podcasts. This is our In Response To podcast. We've done it previously. The last one, I think, that was officially recorded up and released had like the whole big roundtable thing. We had a lot of discussion going with a lot of people. This time it's going to be kind of going back to the original format, a little bit older style, just us two discussing and going over decks and really focusing on tournament results as opposed to just set release. I think for every set release there might be a big discussion, but at least tournament stuff we'll do kind of more shorter stuff. So of course I am Nan Man, the real Nan Man, and with me today is kind of our co-host of Modern Magic Monday. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Brett here, Farvo Zernar, and I'm kind of super stoked to be doing another podcast. The Amon Kit was fun.
Yeah,
I think that was the last one that we did.
Yeah.
Which was cool because we had the not the real, but real Eminem.
Just doing some discussion with us.
Yeah. Partner in crime over at Modern Magic Mondays, and then we had Trip Roach, the shop owner at Comic Kung Fu, and we were able to kind of talk about Amon Cat as a whole, kind of what we were seeing, the different mechanics that were coming back. And I know if you guys are watching this, I assume I've got it prepared for YouTube. Just
Perfect.
FYI.
That we will be doing a YouTube and iTunes and all the releases. So if you want to look all over the place, you can find us.
You'll see it. You'll see we've got some sweet Rivals of Ixalan promo art. But I think what we really want to talk about is why Modern Magic Mondays existed overall. And that's the Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan.
Yes. Yeah. So the whole big thing, we hadn't had a Modern Pro Tour in 2 years. So back 2016 or so was that whole big, Eldrazi Winter. I'm sure you guys remember this. And then everyone was like, no more Modern at the Pro Tour. This is why.
Shut
Eldrazi's everywhere. This is horrible. Why did we do this? The entire top 8's Eldrazi except for like one deck. No, it was like the robots versus Eldrazi was how it went last time. So but we were super hyped and stoked to be able to watch Modern and know that it was coming back, and it seemed like the viewership actually responded really well to Modern coming back too. But from all the tweets that I was seeing, is the numbers were doing extremely well, even though it was like European time. So like even the East Coast and stuff like that, like wake up in the morning, you'd be able to catch it and stuff like that. I don't know how well West Coast did for like catching it live, but they did rebroadcast up after it was over each time.
I think we probably had the toughest time being on the East Coast.
Yeah.
West Coast, it was like 6 a.m, I think. So it was in Bilbao, Spain.
Yeah.
And for us on the East Coast, it ended up being like 3 a.m. is when it started. Because I remember waking up on Friday morning being like, oh, I wonder how long. And they're like, all right, it's round number 3. And I was like,
oh,
wow, I've missed so much already. They were in the end of the draft. And, we were getting ready to go into the Modern portion.
I was super happy about that.
Yeah.
It's like perfect time to wake up. Yes, Modern.
Draft is fun, but, we were really there for the Modern piece of it.
I do like watching the draft. I don't care about the matches after the draft.
Really?
I don't. I really enjoy, when I do Cube and I do draft online, I love drafting. But then the matches, once I have the deck, I'm just like, I could care less about this deck. I have no connection to it other than I pick these cards. But I like the picking more than I like the actual playing with draft for some reason.
So you're saying you probably aren't a draft master?
By no means am I a draft master.
How about a pre-release master?
No.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, sealed is not my forte by any means. Limited, nope, not going to be 5-0ing every limited league I play. So, but no, Modern's kind of our wheelhouse. Hence Modern Magic Mondays, which we did start up actually right after the Pro Tour.
Isn't that funny?
It's 2 years ago.
That's hilarious.
We started up. We're like, Modern seems great right now. Why don't we start up a show about it?
It's terrible because I think it really was great up until that Pro Tour.
Yeah.
And then we went into such a, I don't want to say slump, but it was just like one deck that was constantly being at the top.
If you weren't playing that deck, you were having trouble.
Yeah, you were having trouble. You know, it was Eldrazi until they got rid of I.
Yep.
And then it was Dredge.
And Infect.
Yeah. I like to keep Infect out because it's still okay.
It's still, yeah.
It wasn't. I don't ever think of Infect when I think of like things that were warping the format.
Well, yeah. So a lot of people were doing linear stuff and like combo stuff to try to deal with Dread, right? And then so that Infect preys upon those decks. So it's like, hey, if you're doing this linear thing, I'm just going to play Infect and I'm going to kill you. It's not going to matter. Yeah. So that's why it's like Infect sort of rose up, especially with Gitaxian Probe being legal, right? It was like Dredge was still the super scary one with how consistently it could get all the power on the board kind of thing. So they like, nope, we're going to get rid of Gitaxian Probe. We're going to get rid of Golgari Grave Troll. And then that was last year. And the format has been great. Like, it slowly have developed up. Like, we saw the development of some new decks. Like, I think that's been what's really nice is a lot of new decks have been developed over this last year since the banning. More decks are able to kind of thrive in this scene where it's been a little bit limiting in what could happen before then. It's like, Eldrazi, you're playing Dredge, you're playing Infect, like, you know, you're playing these linear combo decks kind of thing. And now it's like, you can play anything.
Yeah. What I find interesting is even though, you know, we talk about the different decks that kind of from 2016, that Pro Tour, you know, we saw Eldrazi, we saw Dredge and Infect, and then we saw Death Shadow.
Yes.
You know, and Death Shadow was interesting because, yes, if you weren't playing Death Shadow, you were trying to play something that beats Death Shadow.
Well, it was also interesting to see Death Shadow turn into what it is now.
Right.
Because it was completely different when Gitaxian Probe was legal.
Exactly.
And it was like a zoo all in on Become Immense on this Death Shadow and Temur Battle Rage. And like you would do this very all-in style. And now it's like Action Probe's gone. How else can we build this deck? And then
it's much more of a much more of a mid-range deck now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really just kind of grinding you out.
Well, it's also seeing that development once they switched and like, okay, you can play Grixis, Death Shadow, which is like that whole control-y stuff. You know, Stubborn Denial is a great card. And then you've got like that Traverse Shadow, which is kind of that more mid-rangey Delirium focus style that we've seen that is more of that like 4-color. So it's cool to see that now it is almost like 2 separate decks. Because I know during that development time, people were trying all kinds of stuff. They were doing 5 colors and 2 colors, and you know everyone's been trying to figure out what's the best way to do Death Shadow, and now we kind of have those 2 pillars, I guess, of Death Shadow.
Right.
So we've kind of talked a little brief history of Magic leading up to it, and at least Modern getting up to this Pro Tour. There was a really cool article that got written up over on Wizards' website. Frank Karsten wrote it up, just kind of going over the cards that have been released since the last Modern Pro Tour, and that was really cool to see just because we had Shadows over Innistrad, we had Eldritch Moon, we had, of course, the Amonkhet block, an Hour of Devastation, then Ixalan came out, Rivals of Ixalan, right before this whole Pro Tour kind of thing. And a lot of cards were able to come out, like we talked about Dredge getting better because of those cards. There's cards that were released that now were able to make the human deck a thing.
Yep.
Because that was not a thing previously until these sort of sets came out. There was just a lot of cool stuff, like the extra fast lands that got printed in Kaladesh. I get Kaladesh in one of the sets that came out. That was another one. Kaladesh block came out. Like Collective Brutality is an amazing card. There's just like some really cool cards that were printed. Fatal Push. How can we forget about that?
I mean, what does it do? It removes basically every creature that the Modern format's playing, because Modern is always, for anyone listening that doesn't know, is like a what did they say? Turn 3, turn 4 format?
I think, that turn 4 is like
what they're looking for.
We don't want things to be killing consistently before turn 4. That's their logic behind it. Most of the time it doesn't happen.
Right. So we're looking for those powerhouse cards that cost 1, 2 mana, you know, and Fatal Push gets that.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like every set more or less had at least 2 cards get added in. You could see some big ones like, oh, there's 4 or 5 cards getting added in. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out for Rivals. I'm brewing up with Dead Man's Chest.
Mm.
I'm sure people at home have started brewing with things. We haven't seen any big changes yet, but then again, the set just came out. Like, we've seen some sprinkling of people trying out dinosaurs in some of the like red green Ponza lists. And there's little things people are seeing, but I'm not seeing a huge change like where it's like, oh, Fatal Push, everyone's playing that. Maybe that dinosaur that you can play extra lands, like Azusa, might start seeing play in some specific lists, but I'm not really seeing something yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you guys are brewing at home. If there is something, let us know. We'd love to take a look at that stuff. So, that's kind of our evolution of Modern. I really recommend you guys check out that deck. They announced a new set.
I had no idea.
I'm super excited.
What?
Because of the official reprints that they've said so far, and my fingers are crossed that one card that we really want that we don't own will be reprinted in this one. So this is Masters 25, celebrating 25 years of Magic, right? And they released it with the packaging and saying, hey, in this packaging, we're going to say, look at these cool, sweet cards that clearly they're iconic cards. You're going to know what they are. There's one robot-looking dude. We don't know who he is. But Jace the Mind Sculptor and Azusa Lost But Seeking official reprint's going to be happening in this Masters 25 set.
Wizards of the Coast are such trolls.
Aren't they?
No, I mean, like, okay, all right. So the 2 like feature cards for Masters 25. Don't get me wrong, I think it's super exciting. Good for them. But here it is. Jace the Mind Sculptor. You can play that in Legacy. Azusa Lost But Seeking. You can play that in Legacy. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so, like, it's like, well, I say everyone, but there are some loud voices that would like to see Jace the Mind Sculptor get unbanned in Modern. Mm-hmm. And Azusa Lost But Seeking is in... Oh, no, she's not banned. I was thinking of Summer Bloom.
No, yes.
Yeah, I was thinking... So sorry.
She doesn't really have a home since Summer Bloom got banned. Right. Like, some people try to still work her in with it, but it's like, it's not really the same power when you don't have Summer Bloom.
You're right.
So...
It's still... My stance is still on. They're such trolls.
They're such trolls. So this is a new set that they're going to be coming out with. It's going to be released March 16. So it was just sort of out of the blue. It's like, oh, surprise, guys! Hey, look at this new set. It's coming out before actually we go back in time and everything like that. So February 26th, the whole spoiler, full preview stuff will be kicking off. People can find out what other stuff. So Goryo's Vengeance, of course, is the one we're really hoping for.
Oh,
like that's the fingers crossed. There's some cool stuff that, very iconic cards, and I feel like, I don't know if it's going to be like iconic Masters, but or if it's going to just be like, here's just sweet cards we want to reprint that we haven't been able to reprint in 25 years or something.
Yeah, like Goryo, like any cards that you can think of. Goryo's Vengeance is a good one. Geez, what else is out there that?
Through the Breach, we can get some more reprints now. I don't know if there's
Through the Breach would be good, man. Basically, this is you want to build a Goryo's Vengeance deck. Let's do it.
We got you.
Let's do it.
No, so I'm excited to see what I like that they said. They have a really cool watermark on Azusa's text box representing the original printing. And nearly every card in Masters 25 will have this treatment. Even cards originally printed in limited edition, alpha, beta, and unlimited.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Being able to see those alpha, beta, and unlimited cards again with maybe definitely some updated card text.
Yeah.
The boxes are going to be updated, but maybe even some art changes. I know that's probably like a sin, right? Like, no, don't touch limited and beta. But no, like, let's see it. Let's see what we can come up with for some of those older style cards.
So, we're going to skip over this week talking about any of the SCG tour stuff because we usually when we do this, we'll talk about as many decks and as many tournaments that have taken place, but the main focus is going to be on the Pro Tour. So I figure we'll just jump into at least day one. Because again, Frank was saying, you know what, I'm going to put up all this stats and all this information all weekend long, and had written a bunch of great articles. And it was really cool to see like the most played cards that were played for at least day one. And looking at it kind of gets you an idea of what decks were played too. Funny enough, so in the top 5, right, most played card, one of them is a land. So Scalding Tarn's in there. So if we ignore if we ignore lands from the top 25 played cards and just look at the cards that were played, like number 1's Lightning Bolt. I was a little surprised, to be honest.
How come?
I know Lightning Bolt has come back more, but I guess I was not expecting maybe as much as Jeskai as was running around. I was maybe expecting more blue white, but I guess Jeskai has been doing better, so that means more bolts. Burn is always good. Grixis, Death Shadow. So I guess with those 3 main decks, and then that doesn't include like any Valakut based decks that might have it in the board or anything like that.
True.
But it's good news for Wild Defiance coming back. It's safe to say we can bring that guy back.
This is not the we support Infect.
No, this is not. All
no. Right. No. But seriously, on a kind of talking about why we're seeing that resurgence of Lightning Bolt, I think it really did take a hit when Death Shadow was popular, because what was a Death Shadow deck running while it was out, or while it's still out? The big creatures were like what? Tarmogoyf? Yep. Death Shadow.
Yep.
These are all cards that Lightning Bolt is just really bad against.
It does not work.
Super bad. And we would rather play cards like Fatal Push, Path to Exile, cards that can just, 1-for-1 remove instead of just going, all right, well, I'm just going to deal 3 damage.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to sneak in those couple points, but I feel like a lot of times in those Death Shadow matchups, it's just a deck card.
Mm-hmm. So number 2, of course, Thoughtseize. Again, with all the different decks that were running around, having that disruption's nice, because not only Death Shadows are running it, if you have any mid-range Jund, Abzan style decks, but even the green-black Tron list will be running it too. Mm-hmm. So I like that it's number 2. What do you think about our number 3 card?
Oh, it's right on the money. I can't.
Third most played card. Why
absolutely.
Would it not be?
The beauty, I heard something where someone was said Thoughtseize is probably one of the strongest cards in Magic.
Yes.
For 1 black mana and 2 of your precious life points, you can take any non-land card. Doesn't matter who. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't people be running it?
Mm-hmm.
But then of course, if it has to shadow over Path to Exile, I guess I understand. Mm-hmm. But it does say exile target creature. Period.
So behind Path to Exile, Serum Vision, with Jeskai, blue-white control, Grixis, Death Shadow, like the amount of blue that's running around, it makes sense that Serum Vision. Plus, we have our Storm decks, right? They're playing Serum Vision, so that makes sense that would be etched up over Fatal Push. But Fatal Push comes in 7, so happy to see that. And then again, it's like the other spells basically go along with those sort of types of decks, right? Snapcaster's in there, Inquisition, Collective Brutality. Not until like number 12 with Noble Hierarch and number 13 Relic that we start to see kind of a switch from the types of decks that were kind of the most played cards and stuff. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But other interesting fact was like the numbers, because a lot of people, I think, were on the plan of, okay, we know that Burn's going to show up because it's Burn, right? It's a good.
It's always there.
Yeah, like it's
never ever forget that Burn exists.
And as I think that's the same thing about Affinity too. It's like at a Pro Tour, it's just you're playing lots of rounds kind of thing. It's a good deck, like especially if people are maybe lighter on the hate against Affinity, right? Like if they're more concerned about other decks, like the number 1 deck, which was the 5-color human list, which has been growing in popularity.
It's because it's so cheap.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like it's super cheap on Magic Online, and so it's real easy to kind of put together in both the paper and digital.
Yes.
You know, and it's just it has a very, very strong kind of baseline.
Yeah, it's a really powerful creature-based deck, and you know, I was wondering, okay, are we gonna see any people like on Fish or anything like that, or like any other creature-based decks that are gonna be like Nightfall or you know stuff like that? But it's like really, if you're gonna be playing a creature-based strategy that's like kind of all about that turn dude sideways, you should be playing the 5-color human kind of thing. Like you can play anything right now, but I think the 5-color human definitely shows why it is better than a lot of the other creature-based decks, because it does have ways to disrupt, and it's, you know, I can make sure you don't play that card with meddling, right? I can return your creature and you can't play that next turn, kind of thing. With Reflector Mage, and like you can Kite Sail Freebooter comes in, you can steal a card from your opponent's hand. Like it's got
its utility.
Yeah.
It's a pure utility and power level deck. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't expecting humans.
Yeah, well, so, and that's, it's like you had a mix of pros saying that too. It's like there was those that were like, I thought a lot of people were going to be playing humans, and then there was a lot of people like, I didn't expect humans. Like I knew there'd be Burn, I knew there'd be Affinity, I knew there'd be like Tron and stuff, you know, but I wasn't expecting humans. And I think that also showed in who was doing better in that like day 2 environment too. Those that prepared against humans, you know, I think did much better, because 43 players showed up with humans, so it was the most played deck, but that was 9.3% of the field.
You know, we're inching pretty close.
Or, you know,
with 9.3, you start looking like once you're in the 10%, it's in that scary level where you're like, well, wait a second, what's happening here?
But number 2, it's like, again, it's that deck that a lot of people, when they think about Modern, it's one of the decks that's still in the back of people's mind when they're thinking about, okay, what's a deck in Modern, right? That's been around forever and it's still going to be there in the future. Like it's not really going anywhere. Some days it's better than others in the sense that there's more hate for it, right? So Affinity comes in second with 37 players playing it, and that's 8% of the field. It's a good deck. It's fast. It's expected to win game 1, and then you have 2 games to try to close it up, essentially. If you're losing game 1, you're going to have a hard time. Because post-board, the deck just gets worse, because everybody else brings in their hate, and they've got a lot more ways to deal with you, kind of thing. Burn is like, hey, you want to play that top deck game? Sure, we can do it. It's much more consistent now that it is that 2 colors Boros Burn. Not really any of that 3 colors of Tarka's command running around. People aren't caring about it anymore. So that's 34 players, right behind them, 7.3%. 4th place, your favorite deck, right?
I mean, okay. All right. I don't want to sit here and offend anyone that's going to play Tron, which, by the way, had 32 players at 6.9%.
4th most popular deck.
4th most popular deck. And I understand why. Don't get me wrong. But for me, it's the enemy.
It is.
You know, it's. I would rather play a Burn matchup, or even honestly Affinity, and I get my butt kicked.
Yeah.
When I play against Affinity all the time, but Tron, it's just you just draw and you play the cards. Like it just seems every time I play a Tron player, it doesn't matter how they just draw what they need. Like I grind it out so hard just to lose in the end.
See, I love playing grindy decks and long drawn out games, but they just, when it gets to that point, they're just like, well, I have now 200 mana because I've got 2 sets of Tron lands.
Exactly.
Yeah, look, I just top deck Ulamog now. Yeah. My top decks are much better than your top decks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I play spells and stuff, so I'm like, Serum Visions? That doesn't beat Karn, huh?
Nope. Oh, darn.
Okay. Great.
But there was like 3 different colors running around for Tron, right? You could play your like green black, you could play your green red, or just mono green was running around as well. So like I like seeing that, but the main ones were green, black, and green red.
As it should be.
Right. So then our 5th Grixis Shadow. I was expecting more Grixis Shadow. I wasn't as expecting 5-color human to be first.
Yeah, you know? I still think we're kind of in that area where Death Shadow is still very popular.
I mean, it's very close in numbers to Tron, right? 30 players played it compared to 32 of Tron. So,
I just think humans is the new hotness.
Yes,
you know what I mean. So there's like that. It's that brand new car smell on the deck.
It's also you can go into it and maybe edge out against players because they might not have practiced against it if it's not showing up in their practice group. If it's, you know, like maybe they played a couple games against it online, but different unless your group says one of your players is on it and we're gonna do reps and stuff. So Grixis Shadow number 5. 6 is Eldrazi Tron. Again, once they banned our eye, they decided, then we'll just put some Tron lands in here. It'll be great.
It'll be great.
Yeah, and that's, 26 players showed up with Eldrazi Tron. So, then we've got kind of our blue decks, 7th, 8th, 9th. Jeskai Control showed up, 23 players, and that was 5%, right? Of course, our Gifts Storm was 23 players, 5%. Blue-White Control, 23 players, 5%.
Wow.
Everything else that showed up was below 5%. There's other decks, that a lot of them were close to that, but I only want to talk about those that showed up with at least 5% meta. Did you see round 1 of Modern of the Blue-White Control versus Jeskai Control?
I'm glad you asked that question. I was getting ready for work, and we just finished up round 3.
Yeah.
And they did an interview with, I think his name is Raphael Levy.
Yeah.
And, we were talking to him, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then we get to round 4, and it's like, all right, first matchup of Modern. Here we go. Raphael Levy on Jeskai Control. And then his opponent, which I'm blanking.
I'm blanking too.
I'm blanking. It's somebody we know too. It was excuse me, it was Paolo.
Oh yes.
It was Paolo, and he's playing blue-white. No, was it? Do I have that? No, I'm sorry. Paolo was on Jeskai. Raphael was on blue-white. And boy, did Twitch chat lose their minds. They were so salty about the fact that we had such a just old-fashioned control matchup. We haven't seen these in forever.
So I'm gonna do esports talk for a second. That match reminded me of StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, like 2010, 2011, when it was Terran versus Terran, and it's just like split map. They're all sitting there with giant armies, and they can't attack into each other, and they can't kill each other, and it just is like a 50-minute long game of just a lot of sitting around.
Oh my gosh,
it's like the game, you could see them sort of like, we're going to trade resources at the beginning, and they're doing this and doing that, and then they just get set up, and they're just like, they kept counting each other's decks to see if either of them had a chance to deck each other out. And you got that chance there with that Ancestral Recall, and he's like, do I make you, or Vision, sorry, Ancestral Visions, do I make you draw the 3 cards because it will put you closer, or do I draw the 3 cards here? Like, it was
the tension was broken a little bit. I think probably around the 10-minute mark. I remember because like I'm like brushing my teeth and I'm watching this match, and then all of a sudden the judge gets called.
Yeah.
And this judge call lasts, I think, for like 2 or 3 minutes as they're trying to resolve what was it?
God.
It was is basically they wanted to resolve a card draw. You know what? I'm not even gonna try and talk my way through it.
No, I'm trying to think. I think it was something. I don't remember. It was related to a card draw.
You guys can tell me exactly what it was at home, but
card draw or scrying, or I don't remember.
Yeah, but basically it ended up like everyone was just losing it. They're like, can we just go somewhere else? But like there was like a small little handful of people that were like, yeah,
Control mirror, this is the best Magic.
This is what I want in Magic.
Well, so I actually heard a discussion from some people of saying that blue-white control is the slowest deck in Modern. Slower than Lantern control. Like, in order to set up your win and be able to win sometimes. Like, yeah, you have the Planeswalkers as your big, like, I'm going to beat you down with Planeswalkers. Like, you've got all the Gideons and stuff, or I'll make a bunch of 1/1 warriors, right? But, so that was interesting to see. And I was curious to see, like, how many other control mirrors there were, since there was, 5% of the meta was blue-white and 5% was Jeskai, but, like, 50 minutes to complete game 1.
And honestly, Raphael was like skin of his teeth.
Yeah.
By the end, like he snuck it right at the very end on turns, I believe.
It was. They went to turns, like 3 cards left in each other's decks. 2 like it was down to the wire on that. So I think when I saw that, I was like, it's gonna be a good weekend. Like we're gonna have some great Modern this weekend.
I'm pretty sure that Wizards probably was like, okay, I'm glad we
got this done.
We did this. That's great. All right, let's get into what everyone wants to see.
Yeah. So we talked about at least the percentage and what sort of decks were there day 1. I wanted to at least highlight some cool decks that didn't make day 2 before we kind of do breakdowns of numbers of what decks made day 2. Because there are some cool decks that were running around. These are the ones that I made note of. I'm sure there was other ones that when you guys looked through the list, were like, "Whoa, this deck is so cool! Why didn't that make them?" So, like, 5-color copycat, right? You don't like making infinite cats?
Well, what's the 5th? Like,
I don't know.
What are you playing in black?
Is the problem. So I don't know what. So it's basically it's a Keeley combo, right?
Right.
So you're gonna make a bunch of kitty cats with Feldar Guardian.
Is it just like sideboard cards, I guess, that you would be running black in? I just don't know.
Maybe it's actually like a 2-color and they wrote their name down as 5-color to troll people. Have you seen people do that when they go to events? They'll like, I'm playing Infect as my deck, but I'm going to write down lands on it because I've got lands in my deck. Like, people do weird trolly stuff. I'm not saying this is what happened with the 5-color list, but I've just heard of people being
It's probably like Fatal Push or something like that.
Probably. So I like Copycat. I think it's a cool deck.
Oh, absolutely. It's doing all the best things in Magic. Making infinite dudes and beating you down.
Right. There was a zoo list, right? Dominion Zoo, so it's like, again, a 5-color list, pretty much. All about getting all your basics kind of things. But there wasn't many zoo lists that were running. So
I find that interesting.
I figured there was a zoo list that ran around, and it wasn't like Revolt Zoo. Right. Because that was a big thing for a while. So, what about the next one? I figured you can. One of the other good ones.
Grizzle Shoal Brand.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good deck.
Didn't make day 2, sadly.
As long as it's the Jund color version.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I
mean, I don't know. It's a glass cannon.
It is. It's such a glass cannon.
I mean, if every other deck was under 5%, this was probably I
think this was like point something.
2 or 3 people. One player on it.
I think all of these had like 1 or 2 players max.
Right.
So I saw these and were like, yeah.
So he was like, I'm going to the Pro Tour. I'm just gonna have some fun.
Yep.
I'm gonna get wrecked, but someone's getting hit by some World's Fine Worms.
The other one, Jeskai Ascension.
Still?
So one guy was like, man, you remember when this deck was good? Yep, I'm going to play it.
Don't get me wrong. I love everything that the Japanese community and Magic's doing. It was probably a Japanese player.
Probably.
I'm not going to lie. That sounds exactly like what I would expect from a Japanese player.
Yeah. Jeskai Ascendancies was running around, at least one. The deck is if you think that Storm, the Gift Storm, is a lot of solitaire magic, this deck is solitaire magic to the max.
Tell me about it.
Like, your creatures are defenders that tap for mana. You're not doing much.
It's great.
The other one, of course, was the blue-white, or blue-black, I think it was, or blue-white, whatever. It was the As Foretold list that's running around.
Oh, the living end?
The living end.
Oh, so it's as foretold living end?
Yeah. Which, if you guys have watched any Magic Online, pretty much from December on, you probably have seen this list. A lot of the streamers were playing it at one point or another. It's just a cool list of doing stuff with blue cards and as foretold and living in, right? You're cycling blue stuff, you're countering stuff, just drawing cards, and you have a bunch of 5/5s and stuff out now. So,
yeah.
But so that was pretty cool. Now, I know for their metagame breakdown, they like specifically classify decks, right? Like, is it an aggro deck? Right? Is it a big mana deck? That sort of thing. So it was kind of cool to see. And there's two people that were running Merfolk. They just didn't make day 2.
Huh.
3 people on Infect. Only 2 of them made day 2 though.
It's a pretty. I mean, that's a huge margin.
Yeah.
2, 3 in day 1, 2. I'm kind of looking at these numbers as we get to the more popular decks.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one that stands out the most is Affinity.
Yeah.
I know we skipped a couple. We have Boggles, Hollow One,
Death and Taxes.
I'm sorry, is Death and Taxes considered an aggro list?
I guess when you're like, here's all my Thalias, and I don't know, maybe I don't see it as that, but I don't know if they could put it in any other category, being a heavy creature-based deck that, I don't know. I didn't make up the categories. I'm just reporting.
No, it's fine. I'm just curious. That's all.
Yeah, so like Burn is also in this aggro 5-color humans affinity. So they had in day 1 136 players playing quote unquote aggro decks. 86 of those players made day 2 with a 63.2% conversion rate. There were some that like specific decks that had more conversion rate. On average, they sat there with a 63. So that was interesting to see.
The turn 4 format,
right? Big mana decks.
Man.
These are Brett's favorite.
Front and forefront.
So why don't you talk about these lovely big mana decks?
Man, I love that you forced me to talk about it. So we've got 80 decks in total in day 1. 50 of them made it into day 2. And now, just so you guys remember, your big mana decks, Tron, Eldrazi Tron, Titan Shift, and then Titan Breach. Now, Titan Breach sounds cool.
Yeah, it's you have Emrakul in your list as well, so you can through the breach either Prime Time or Emrakul.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. We're looking at Tron. You know how we talked about it was number 4, right?
Yes.
Number 4.
Most popular list.
22 made day 2, whereas in Eldrazi Tron only 20 made day 2. So it stays pretty consistent. As you get further down that list of big mana decks, obviously those numbers drop consistently.
Yeah, Titan Shift did not put up very good results.
Not for day 2.
Yeah,
not for day 2. And then Titan Breach, same thing. We had 6 people, which is probably a team, coming in on Titan Breach.
Got this, guys.
And only 2 of them were able to sneak into day 2 on that with a 33.3% conversion rate.
All right, so after the big mana, black mid-rangey decks. So this is kind of our Death Shadow style decks are in this category. If you're on like just a rock based deck, your Jund, your Abzan, or even your like Mardu Pyromancer list.
Oh, it's okay. So all right, okay. So there are 13 total.
Yeah, so there's 13 players on the Mardu list. They were all slightly different. I did a modern meta breakdown showcasing Gary's list, and then another list that was like 21 to 23 points in modern. A little bit more creature heavy with Goblin Rabblemaster instead of Liliana.
Okay.
So like Gary's list had Liliana, was a little bit more control-y. The other one had more burn spells and more creatures. So you can tweak it and build it slightly different, but the same premise is Young Pyromancer, Bedlam Reveler.
Sure.
You're going to do that for the Pyromancer list. Grixis Shadow was the most popular kind of black mid-range with 30 players on it for day 1, 20 made day 2. So that did really well. But overall, the black mid-range, 77 players on any one of those types of decks for day 1, 50 made day 2. So pretty good conversion. Like, I mean, Reed Duke was one of those players that was on Abzin. And he's just like, I'm playing Modern. I like this deck. I'm going to play this deck. I don't care if it's the best format or not, or best deck in the format. I like this deck. I know this deck really well. I'm going to do well with this deck.
He loves black-green decks.
Yes.
I've seen him play Jund. I think I've seen him play black-green. And on Abzan, I'm not surprised. Mm-hmm. The man's a fan of Tarmogoyf.
He does. Yeah, he likes it. It's got powerful cards in it, right? We were talking about Thoughtseize being the number 2 card in for day 1 at least played, and a big reason is for these kind of black mid-range decks.
Absolutely.
So those decks did pretty well there, as you might expect. But what about the next list?
Oh yeah. So he gave me big mana and control.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, control. 65 players came in on day 1. On that, do we have a total list of players, or we would have to do math?
We'd probably do math.
All right, so I won't get off on a tangent. 65 players on day 1 with a control deck. I'm sorry, they say blue control deck.
Yeah,
It's very important to note that it's a blue style control deck. Giving us all that data. 17 on day 2 for that Just Guy control list. We had 23 in day 1. 17 came in into day 2. Mm-hmm. Blue-white control, same number on day 1. So Jeskai and blue-white control comparatively were the same amount.
Yeah, those were both our 5% of the mana deck.
23 decks, and then 14 came in on day 2. And then of course those numbers are super skewed as you go down the line. We had Grixis control, Madcap Moon, blue-red.
Sometimes white
Breach,
which all of them
they all made day 2, as well as our blue-black fairies players and our blue-red pyromancer. Now, I want to say, that blue-red pyromancer list,
like the Thing in the Ice one.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I was a fan.
He was going to town.
I don't think anybody was ready for that.
No, not even a little
Thing in
bit.
the Ice.
Yeah,
all my creatures go to my hand. Oh, okay.
We got to see a lot of feature matches with that deck, because his name is Lucas. I can't think of his last name right now, but he ended up making top 8, right?
Yes.
Okay, he did make top 8. I was
trying to find. No, he's up top.
Yeah, but he was undefeated. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Pascal Viren. That's right, Pascal Viren.
There was another person. There was a couple of lists that were running around, like you said. There was
Pascal Viren. I mean, he was undefeated going into day 2. I think he had only had a draw going into day 2, and then he just continued to steamroll all the way up to the top 8.
Yeah, he did well.
I think he ended up going X 2 and 2 or X 0 and 2. Like I don't think he ever really dropped it in round.
Yeah.
But that deck was sweet. Thing in the Ice, cantrips, and pyromancer. Sure.
I want to do all that.
Yep.
I mean, I think the big reason that Jeskai got a few more people into day 2 over blue-white was just the extra burn they had to try to get people. Yeah. Right. Bolts, helixes, things like that. So the next kind of category. Do you want to talk about the next one?
No, you got it. Right. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, that's how you know. So we've got combo decks as our next sort of category. Of course, Gift Storm is in there. Dredge, Devoted Company, which is that Devoted Druid, Vizier combo stuff, the kind of new Abzan company. Fant Nightfall, Ad Nauseum, Elves, and Ironwork combo. Do you know that are this? Now I'm blanking on his name. The guy that runs around the Star City circuit. That's all about the control.
Shaheen Surani.
He was on Ironworks.
I saw that. I think he also did a deck tech on the Ironworks combo deck.
So lots of fun decks. We'll actually talk a little bit more about Ironworks in a bit, but so day 1, 64 players on combos, and 37 made day 2, about 57.8% or so. The gifts started with 23. 13 of them made day 2.
Yeah.
So 10 people dropped off, but they still did pretty well for that. Dredge again, 17, 9. You know, it was pretty good overall for numbers for them kind of transitioning over. So, I forgot about the last one.
Oh man.
Why don't you talk about this guy?
Can't wait to talk about this category.
Love it.
So, because Modern is such a great format, it's the Wild West, you can do pretty much anything you want. We have to make sure that we're throwing a little shout out to the Prison category of decks. Prison, which, if you guys don't know, Lantern Control, Red-Green Land Destruction, or Ponza, and then, a green-white Turbo Land deck. I assume that's Turbo Fog.
It wasn't actually. I saw it was on camera once, and it was kind of like the Knight of Corehelm stuff, but you're not having Corehelm combo in there, but you're just playing
Knight of the Reliquary.
Knight of the Reliquary, and you just have a lot of really cool lands in your deck, and that was how they did it.
Well, guess what? 50% conversion rate on that. 2 people came in with green-white Turbo Land. And we had 13 decks total for Prison in day 1. 7 made day 2 with a 53.8 conversion rate. And obviously, we did have our Luis Salvato, who was piloting Lantern Control, who made it into the top 8. 6 of them made day 2.
6 of them made day 2.
FYI.
BBD was one of them.
Oh, okay.
So
wow.
Red-Green Land Destruction, that Ponza. None of them made day 2.
Well,
wasn't there event.
We tried.
No, I think the Turbo Land one was like playing Ghost Quarters and playing that new Ixalan land that you pay 2 and you
Field of Ruin.
There you go.
Yep.
And like Crucible World and that dinosaur that lets you play lands from your graveyard. So I think it was just like, I'm gonna make you have no lands. I think that's why it was Turbo Land style.
Gotcha.
But, you know, so that was like our conversion rate. Like there's all the singletons if you want to look through the amount of singletons and stuff like that.
Eldrazi Spirits.
We will talk about that.
Okay.
Because that is one of the lists that I saw and was like, wait a minute.
What?
So there's what's nice is Wizards gives us a breakdown, right, of decks that were like, okay, these ones got at least 18 to 20 points in Modern. These ones did 21 to 23 points in Modern. These 24 to 26, and you know, our top 8 and stuff like that. So I went through at least glancing over the 18 through 20 points, and there's a couple of decks like Esper Gorios. I saw that list, and it popped up about summertime. People were trying it out and stuff like that. You can basically sneak back your Obstinate Ghost Council with Goryo's Vengeance and then flicker it at the end of the turn, and it will stay instead of being exiled by Goryo's Vengeance or being put back into your graveyard by Goryo's Vengeance. So you got to do that, and you just have there's a 5/5 that you can flicker each turn, drain 2, gain 2.
It's great, yeah.
So I love that. Like, you know, I think if I would play a Goryo style deck, that would be mine to play. But Christian Calcutta was on Boggles, so I like, you know, Boggles is still making presence. We talked about it as one of the aggro decks.
Yeah.
So there was some cool stuff that people were playing. You know, again, that was some of our Lantern Control players. Eldrazi-tron was running around, Gift Storm, Reverse Shadow. Like, there was a lot of decks that we had talked about for our decks in the meta. Like Madcap Moon was one of them, which is like, I'm gonna get that Platinum Imperium, can't lose life off of Madcap, and I've got an 8/8 and lock you out with Blood Moon. So, you know, there's fun decks like that. But there was some other ones too that I saw. There's that blue-red, I can never pronounce that,
Kiln Fiend.
That stupid Fiend deck.
Yep.
You know, it's basically just like the Thing in the Ice, but instead of running the Young Pyromancer and like that sort of style, you're basically doing that.
Is the Kiln Fiend the does it have prowess, if I remember, or is it just instants and sorceries?
I'll pull it up.
Okay. Oh dear.
I can spell it. Oh, this is the thing in the ice version. Okay, so this is the Bedlam Reveler, the Fiend, Swift Spear, Thing in the Ice, Fear Visions, Bolt. So the Fiend is our whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell.
+3/+0. Okay, so yeah, that's actually not too bad because Killing Fiend does cost 2, a red and a colorless. For a 1/2, of course it's gonna die to those popular cards that showed up at the Pro Tour: Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push. But yeah, this looks like it's running a lot of different cantrips that not only are doing things like drawing cards, but it's also got Teamer Battle Rage, Mutagenic Growth. It's an all-in style deck.
It is. It's like I'm either gonna get you with my. I'm not gonna say it. The Fiend,
Kill Fiend.
There you go. Or Thing in the Ice are the main ways to kill you. But I can still go like this sort of burn, Monastery, Swift Spear, Lightning Bolt, and chip away at you kind of thing. So I thought that was a pretty cool deck. We got to look at this Eldrazi Spirit list. That's the one we want to talk about. Eldrazi Spirits. Oop, I missed it.
No.
Yeah, it's right on it. All right, so it's the list is basically like, so you remember the Spirit deck, like Bant Spirits or whatever that was running.
I do.
Around,
I played it.
It's kind of like the same thing. Like it's got the Selfless Spirits in here. Mausoleum Wanderers running around.
Yeah.
Spell Queller is in here.
It's a great card.
But then it's like, black white Eldrazi is a thing. I'm gonna kind of do that too. And it's got like Thought Knot Seers in here. It's got the of course Leonin Arbiter. Like here's like this Death and Taxes style. Thalia, Garden of Thraben, and Eldrazi Displacer. I'm gonna flicker stuff. Right. It's also got Reflector Mage in here. Path to Exiles, the 4 spells, and then 4 Aether Vials.
Yeah. What? Just real curious. What sort of record did this gentleman get?
18 to 20 points.
18 to 20. Yeah, I'm just looking at the creatures. Leonin Arbiter is a pretty cool card, and Spell Queller is a cool card, and it's got Path to Exile as the only instant. This kind of sounds like maybe a deck I should be playing. Now that I'm seeing it,
it's pretty sweet. It's basically like, hey, I don't care about humans. I care about spirits and Eldrazi.
Spirits, well, Eldrazi I could take or leave, but these are like the good Eldrazi, not the bad ones.
Yeah.
Eldrazi Displacer, Thought Knot Seer. Those ones I'm fine with. It's the ones where you get beaten down for 5 and trample.
The reality smashers.
Those are. I'm not a fan of those personally.
So Thought Knot's okay in your book?
I mean, yeah, because Thought Knot's doing things like exiling cards.
Yeah, okay.
Not just creatures.
Yeah, so this is kind of just like a blue-white colorless deck. Right? It's a 3-color deck because you have to be able to have that waste or that colorless mana to be able to cast Thought Knot Seer and Eldrazi Displacer ability and stuff like that. So, but that's why it runs the temples, it's Ghost Quarters, it's Pain Lands. Like the deck's sweet. Like 18 to 20 points. One of the ones we wanted to talk about. I like it's kind of like that mesh of 2 different decks, like spirits, and it's like the Death and Taxes. You just don't need black, right? We don't need death for it. We're just gonna play Spirit and Taxes. So, Ironworks combo was on one of the other ones that was running around. If you guys watched the recent week of Modern Magic Mondays, that was one of the decks that did show up. The deck's a weird deck. It's eggs. You guys did that. Real Eminem played it on Magic Online.
Yeah, he did. And he actually did really well with it.
He did. It was like, so. And then Ad Nauseam was one of the other decks. I just wanted to highlight that because it's not one of those like super popular decks that normally gets discussed when we were talking about the meta. So there was that. But 21 to 23 points, there was like at least 3 really interesting ones. One of which was a zombie list. So they got 21 points. They went 7-3 in Modern. So as you might expect, it's like, all right, what sweet cards can we run for black, right? So we're gonna have Fatal Push, right? There's Collective Brutality, Inquisition, Thoughtseize. There has to be a Path to Exile. Only one, but there's still one. Surgical's in the main board for it. It's got a playset of Lingering Souls. But
not a zombie.
Not a zombie, but the evasion's nice. 3 Liliana the Veils in here. The creatures, 15 creatures, 4 Gravecrawler. Pretty good because you can cast it from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. Can't block, it's just 2/1, but aggressive play. The Dread Wanderer. So a sweet Amonkhet card if you guys have played that sort of aggro style then. Pretty much the same sort of stuff that you might expect from the Gravecrawler. I want to bring stuff back from the graveyard. Bloodghast. I want to bring stuff back from the graveyard and play a land. Again, not a zombie, the vampire. Whatever. Tidehull Skull, though, is a zombie. An artifact zombie.
You're right. That is something that it is. I never realized that.
So that's another disruption. You can be able to exile a card from your opponent's hand, and when Tidehull Skull dies, it goes back. Also runs a play set of Smuggler's Copter. So it's like, when I think about like a zombie list, I'm thinking more zombies.
Yeah, but the interesting thing, and I think you're getting to this point, so I'm gonna steal it from you.
Yes.
Is the loot effect.
Yes.
So it's like all of these zombies that we're playing, like Bloodghast and Gravecrawler.
And even the Dread Wanderer, you can pay 3 and return it from your graveyard to the battlefield.
So it's like, it doesn't matter where my zombie is. It could be in my hand or it could be in the graveyard. But with Smuggler's Copter, you're able to kind of loot it away and bring it back later.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's a cool little, like, loot yourself, have evasion with Lingering Souls. Like, I think that's the big reason for the Lingering Souls in here too, is to activate your copter.
Yeah, because you just still get the 2 spirits out of the flashback effect. Now, my only question with this deck, and I could be completely off, but how come we're not running Liliana the Last Hope? Is it too slow?
That single target against a creature is nice. Milling off your own stuff to return stuff, it's kind of counterproductive to you just paying the like 3 mana, or I already have this, I'll pay 1 mana, right? I'm gonna play a land, get it. So I think the disruption of, hey, we'll both discard a card, I'll put something in there and you lose a card off it. I think that's more beneficial of the setup. So I really like that list. Let's see, the Red-Green Eldrazi. So that one's been popping up. Lyle played it at the Invitational. I'm assuming very similar to his list. He actually played it again on Tuesday night.
Okay.
I don't know if he's running Dismember's main in his, but Bolts, it's got a Fork Bolt in there. Ancient Stirring's in here, but it's like all kinds of Eldrazi that you'd expect in almost like the Tron Eldrazi, right? Matter Reshaper, Reality Smasher, Thought-Knot Seer,
the bad Eldrazi,
Endbringer. But then it's like, remember that Bant Eldrazi where we'd ramp up with Noble and Birds? We're gonna do that too. But we're also gonna run Scavenging Ooze for the life gain, and because I have so many creatures, it's easy to get this guy big, right? If you kill my creatures, hey, value, this guy just gets bigger. But then the main reason to be running red-green is this Eldrazi Obligator, right? It's a 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 3/1 with the Void, of course. But you can always pay 2 extra. So essentially on turn 5, you'll be casting this for 1 and a waste. If you do, you gain control of target creature until the end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste. And, by the way, Eldrazi Obligator also has haste. So you get this nice little, gotcha. Right? It also runs Kessig Wolfrun in there.
Just a one-off.
Just, it's a nice little, gotcha. Mind Stone's in here too, is an extra way to get waste and draw card value.
Sure.
So I thought we'd highlight that one. And Living End was in here too. So that was another one. The 24-26 was the white-black Eldrazi.
Okay.
So there was our Death and Taxes Eldrazi style. I did want to talk about an interesting thing that I had heard from players and saw, is that one Affinity player was playing Bitter Blossom in his sideboard.
That's cool.
And one player was playing Hazoret Fervent in his Affinity list.
Hazoret and Affinity is gross.
It is disgustingly good. Like, I dump my hand, and now I have this guy that I can swing in every single time.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
And then if I'm drawing these crappy artifacts later on in the game, I'm going to shoot them at you for 2 damage.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I love that idea.
I mean, it's a great idea.
So I thought it was pretty cool, the little things I noticed from that. So one thing that I wanted to ask is when it comes to sideboards, like we've seen a lot of different decks that were running around. We got to talk about the conversion rate of, you know, the different deck types stuff. Should we be having more stuff in our sideboards for aggro decks, like 5-color human or affinity, or for like the big mana decks like Tron or the Valakut stuff?
I mean, if you took the Pro Tour last weekend and you put it in a box, obviously you would say, based on the numbers, you would want to have aggro decks over big mana. It's just your chances of running into an aggro deck are much higher than running into a Tron deck or a big mana deck. However, for me, I like to have a good mix.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't want to, and maybe that's why I'll never make the Pro Tour, and I'll never play with anyone, like a team, to kind of get that feeling. But for me, and where I play, and you know, we goes to some tournaments, not as often as we would like, but I think I'd always want to keep a healthy mix.
Yeah, I like that.
And just play cards in your main deck that are always good.
Yeah, that's true too.
You know what I mean? Like, I always find like that there's like 2 cards in every matchup where I'm like, well, get this out of here. I just know exactly that I'm gonna have at least 2 slots available to me. But then everything else, it's kind of tough because it's like, okay, well, this is good. Well, what's my matchup? And you just kind of go from there. I mean, what about you?
No, I really like that idea of having that mix of everything, because you never know what you're going to play against. But playing with your deck too, you'll know where its strengths and weaknesses are. So you'll know where to set yourself up to be like, okay, I know that when I'm playing against burn decks, I just have a really hard time. So I need to make sure that I have at least 3 to 4 cards in my sideboard to help in those burn style matchups. Right. So, Laren Control.
What about it? Deck. I mean, yeah, it's a good deck.
So
it requires a high level in skill of play.
It does. I'm gonna wait on this until we talk about the top 8.
Okay.
All right. So why don't you give a rundown of what decks made it to the top 8? I guess. Because there are some cool ones, right? We only had one deck that showed up twice.
We did, and it was the 5-color humans list. Surprise, surprise. We also had an Abzan list, which obviously was Reed Duke.
Yeah,
my man.
Yep.
We have the Traverse Shadow list. We had a Blue-Red Pyromancer, which we do know was Pascal Viren. And then we had, it's Ken Yakahiro, I believe, is his last name.
Yes. On the,
from Japan. And he was running the Black-Red Hollow One deck. Yukihiro, I'm sorry. I apologize. Which is, you know, Hollow One's been one of those decks that's been kind of popping up lately. It has the same intended effect. I want to say is kind of a Dredge-esque deck. It's a combo deck for sure. But it's all about discard, but it runs I think the card that really has kind of set this deck off, at least for Black-Red, is Goblin Lore.
Yeah, Goblin Lore and Burning Inquirer are like the same. I'm gonna draw a bunch of cards and discard a bunch of cards.
Well, the thing about Burning Inquiry is that it's both players.
Yes, that's true. So they can get cards that they want.
And the beauty of Goblin Lore is that it's only you.
And you draw 4 cards off of it.
Right.
I mean, you do have to discard 3. So if your luck is running bad, you might discard the stuff you want. But hey, you're drawing 4 cards. Like.
But the Hollow One doesn't care. Yeah. I do like the Flameblade Adept. I think it did a lot of work for Ken throughout his top 8 time. Being able...
You sit there and you're like, it's a 1/2. Why am I worried about this? But it actually has menace. And every time that you cycle or discard a card, it gets +1. So
came out of a Monket, which is nice.
Yeah. So like that Burning Inquiry, well, I had to discard 3 cards. All right, Goblin Lore, I had to discard 3 cards. Faithless Looting, I had to discard 2 cards. Collective Brutality, if I'm escalating it, I'm discarding cards. Like, it's very easy to make that guy big.
Yeah. And then, of course, to round that out, we had the Lantern Control list from Luis, and we had the Mardu Pyromancer list that Jerry Thompson was running, which, if you guys were able to catch some of the Pro Tour, I do think that Jerry and Luis were featured quite a bit.
Yes.
Because they were doing so well.
They were.
And they were able, we saw Pascal. I mean, everyone that was in the top 8, I think, had at least one feature match throughout the weekend. Pascal had at least 2 from my mind. Jerry was on at least 2, kind of showcasing what his Pyromancer list can do against humans, which I think he was prepared for a huge humans showing at the Pro Tour. So we got to see not only humans, but also he played another deck in the Swiss rounds that people were excited to see. I couldn't remember. I can't remember offhand what he played.
I know in one of his interviews he was talking about how, the deck is good, but there was times where he was sitting there at like 1 life, 2 life, and able to stabilize. So I think, it's a good deck, but be careful if you're going to pick it up and pilot it. I think a big reason why Gary was able to do as well as he did was because of him.
Oh yeah,
right,
for sure.
And him being able to pilot the deck. I also like that it's a little more controlling. Like, he's got 1 Manamorphose in there too, and like little things like that he's tweaked and changed based on his testing that he feels comfortable with. So I think a lot can be said about him piloting this deck. Not to discredit how powerful the deck is. Like, I love the Bedlam Reveler in there and how quickly you can be able to reload your hand and get all the tokens. Like, there were so many times over the weekend where Young Pyromancer was on the field and they were casting Lingering Souls. And it's just like, here's 3 tokens.
Yep.
Right?
True that.
So that was nice to be able to see. But I think, like, you look at the top 8 and it's like, we're going to see, I think, a big influx of more Mardu Pyromancer. There's already a lot of people playing 5-color humans. But like, especially when you're going to a GP or you're going to go to an open, be prepared for these. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of the red-black hollow one, because I think there was people that saw it and were like, man, this deck is sweet. Like, you can do some cool stuff with this deck and just...
It's another glass cannon deck, though. I think it does require a skilled pilot to kind of make it work, because I think sometimes you are just going to fall flat.
Yeah. What do you think about Traverse being in the top 8 and not Grixis?
I think it just shows you the power level of Tarmogoyf, for sure. I like that one of Grimflare.
Yeah,
that was played in the Traverse list as well. I think that's really solid. But the thing is what are you playing in Grixis that you can't play in Traverse?
So that's the thing. It's like a lot of the cards that are in this particular list is sitting there with like Stubborn Denial, Snapcasters, things like that are still in this list. It's just in less numbers kind of thing. Like there's only 1 Snapcaster in here. It's not really relying on font scours and things like that to do that. It's just,
I mean, I guess it's you lose the delve.
Yeah.
Because you want the Delirium for Traverse. Yep. So you have to strip the Gurmag Anglers. You have to strip the Tassigurs, the Thought Scours. Well, I guess you don't have to totally skip the Thought Scour.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to, but I think it's much easier to set up your colors by limiting how much blue, because it's like, all right, I'm gonna have a Snapcaster and I'm gonna have Stubborn Denial, but for the most part it's like Fatal Pushes, Dismembers, Abrupt Decays, Tamer Battle Rage. All of your creatures are either green or black or both, right? With the reference to the Flare there. Liliana the Veil with double black. So, I think if you're going to want to do a 4-color list, this is the way to go.
Sure.
What about so the winner of the event, Gary got to the finals, right? Luis got to the finals, so it was our Mardu Pyromancer versus Lantern Control. Was Lantern Control the big bad guy of the weekend, or was 5-color Humans the big bad guy of the weekend?
Well, so that's a tough question that you ask, because obviously there is a very resounding yes or no. You're either on the fence for Lantern Control,
yes,
or you're against it. You know what I mean? There's no, I feel like there's no happy medium.
There's not. It's
very black and white,
polarizing on
and
for the deck.
For most of the community, I think that Lantern Control is probably going to be a villain.
Yeah.
But it's because it's doing things that you don't want in your Magic matchup, unless you're that's the type of Magic you always want to play.
Yeah.
You want to, because it manipulates both sides of the game. It's not just yours, or it's not just your opponent's, it's both. And that's why Blood Moon gets a bad rap. This deck obviously gets a bad rap because it's doing things that in a normal game of Magic, I would say, I'll make up a number, but I'll say 83%. That's a good fake number to come up with. That's good. That kind of just blankets the chances are you're not going to see this type of Magic played all the time.
Right.
So people aren't prepared for this type of Magic. So they don't know what to do. I think what I liked most about the comments with Lantern Control were, it's a good deck. However, you have to be faster than your opponent.
Yeah.
Because your opponent is not going to know what to do half the time.
Yeah.
So they're going to try and stick it out when there's no way that they can win.
If you have the lock, which it's not that hard to assemble a way to lock your opponent out, of saying, okay, I am now in the point where I have my Lantern of Insight, so I look at the top card of both of our libraries, right? I have Codex Shredder here, right? So I can be able to manipulate what's on top of our library. I also happen to have this Academy Runes now, so I can be able to return an artifact. Oh, and I happen to have this Witchbane Orb, right? I've got this stuff, but I don't have a way to necessarily kill you yet, right? I can't kill you out, but you can't do anything. There's no way that you're going to be able to get what you want without me being able to manipulate your deck or shuffle stuff away. And, I've got a Pithing Needle naming this card, and I've got these other artifacts out, but I don't have, my Spellbomb reoccurring. I don't have, a Collective Brutality reoccurring thing. I'm not doing these damage to you, right? I don't have this, oh, here's this Ulamog that I'm going to swing. Here's this Death Shadow that's a clock, right? People look at this and they go, well, there's all this stuff, but I can come back, right? There's no clock on me right now. I've got all the time in the world where really there's no way you're coming back. And I think a lot of people just don't know when to say, there's nothing I can do. I need to scoop it up, kind of thing. And a lot of people don't want to scoop.
Yeah, I mean that's human nature. They're not going to want to give up if it's not clear that the writing is on the wall. But so that is where I think the downfall of this deck is because if you as a player not playing Lantern Control don't know when the writing is on the wall, you're going to take your games to time and beyond.
Yes.
And you're going to get just as frustrated.
It's an exhausting deck to pilot.
Right.
And I've heard it from everybody that has tried the deck and picked it up, and they're saying, I have a headache after playing because I'm learning the right lines for my deck to play against every single deck that I'm playing right now. And I need to be on point, knowing exactly what your deck is supposed to be doing and how I can stop your deck from doing what it's doing. Like, in a lot of Magic games, you have to know what's in your deck, what's on the field, what might be in your graveyard. Sometimes you have to be able to think about other aspects of it, kind of thing, but it's rare that you need to know 100% what is in your deck, what's in the graveyard, what's on the field, and what's in your opponent's deck, right? You need to also know what's in their hand. You need to have almost infinite amount of knowledge of what's going on in this match so you can be able to succeed at it. Like, I think there's a lot of cards that have helped the deck to progress and help players to get better at it. Like the Word of Invention, being able to find an artifact and stuff has helped, but I saw a lot of tweets from people saying it's going to be really funny to see the amount of people try to pick up this deck and realize how difficult and how hard it is to play. Like, even with Infect, I'm constantly going back to it. Like, I think people that when Gitaxian Probe was around and people were starting to pick it up, used to hate on Infect and talk a lot of trash about it. And, oh my gosh, Infect, it's so easy. You just play a spell, turn a guy sideways, you win, kind of thing. But even with Infect, a straightforward, aggressive base combo deck, you have a lot more lines and it's a lot more complicated than you initially think. This one is like 50 times more complicated. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how many people for the upcoming GPs are playing it and how many people are going to try, and then we're going to see a big drop off. Like, going into an event like the Pro Tour, I was talking at one of the Modern Magic Mondays things, saying I think we're going to see a lot more planar control. We saw 9 people.
Yep.
Right. 6 made day 2. 1 person happened to make the top 8, and that 1 person the whole thing. I think Luis was playing extremely well. Things lined up really well for him that weekend. But I don't think this is going to be a deck that everybody can play. I think it definitely rewards the most skilled players and the most knowledgeable players. Do you think it should be banned? Anything in it, though? Because that was the big thing after the winning. Huge influx of tweets and stuff and conversations going on of people being like, this deck is not good for Magic. This deck is, most boring thing ever. This is bad for the viewers. This is bad for players. This deck should not exist. We need to ban it. We need to get rid of it and stuff like that. But then there was also people coming back at the other side of things as one, Pro Tour winning deck does not make it need a ban, right? It's not like it's sitting there with like Eldrazi Winter taking up all the men. It's not like, it's the most popular deck at the event, right? That was 5-color human. That was almost 10% of the meta, right? This was peanuts in comparison with only 9 players on this list. But, I'm just curious what your thoughts on the deck itself. I think you're in the camp of you don't really like Lantern.
But... I mean, it's not that I don't like Lantern Control. I just think that it's not a deck that I can play. Okay. I know I can look at this list, I can see the cards, I understand how the deck works. But if you put this deck in front of me and said, "Okay, Brett, go play a normal Tuesday night,"
5 rounds,
I'm gonna be miserable.
Yeah.
So I know that there's no way that I could go to a 9, a day 1.
Yeah, you gotta play 9, 8 rounds of
you gotta play double the amount of Magic. Where it's exactly as you said, you have to know not only what your deck is doing, but what your opponent's deck is doing, because at any moment it's fragile. I mean, the deck is very fragile. In the instances, if you're not familiar with your opponent's deck, you're gonna make a mistake. Yeah. You're gonna let them have a card that they shouldn't have, or you're not gonna grab the right toolbox card that you're looking for with Word of Invention. Do I think the deck needs to be banned? No, because I don't think the numbers support at all what Wizards of the Coast is looking for in keeping the format healthy.
Right.
It's not affecting the amount of decks. If you look at all numbers over the course of 4 to 6 months of Magic and Modern, it's all different. Look at the Pro Tour. Look at the list. Like, there's so many different lists. It's such a great time to be playing Modern that I don't necessarily, and also I don't know what you would ban. To be perfectly honest,
the big things that I've been hearing, I'm wondering if these players that were also calling for this were like hating on Tron too, because their big call was like Ancient Stirrings needs to go away because it's, you look at 5 cards, you get to pick a land or an artifact from them, put it into your hand. Like, why is green getting the best card essentially? Like, and the only decks that run it really are Tron based decks or Eldrazi based decks, right?
Or artifact based decks.
Well, not like Affinity's not running it kind of thing. So it's like either this Lantern control list, Tron, or Eldrazi. Those are the only things that are running Ancient Stirrings, right?
But the key word on the card is colorless.
Exactly.
So it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Ancient Stirrings is very powerful.
Yeah.
Being able to look at the top 5 cards of your deck is
good.
Yeah, it's great. But it's one card. If people are calling for that, it's no better than the people that were calling for like all the super powerful blue cards.
Yes.
To be banned, which did happen. Blue has taken such a hit that now we're having to supplement the blue cards with, Ancient Stirrings,
yes,
or artifacts that help kind of support what the blue decks are trying to do, or they have to play more expensive counters. And I'm on the fence. Like, I can't. I'm not gonna sit here and say that we need to make blue great again.
Unban Jace.
Yeah, unban Jace, the Mon Sculptor, because then that it just turns the wheel.
Yeah.
We're just gonna be on the opposite side.
No, the other one was like Mox Opal. People have talked about because free mana and Modern, they've Wizards has taken this approach. They don't like the idea of that free mana, right? They've done their best to try to limit that, but I don't know. I think I don't think anything should be banned in Modern currently, based on what the format is, and like you were talking about, how we've seen such a variety of decks over the last couple of months that I don't think it is something that we need to see. I think even this GP coming up, right? Which I think is the perfect time now to switch over and talk about there's 2 GPs coming up to kind of round up our show. There's GP Toronto, which is this weekend when this podcast is coming out. It's actually going on. And then we've got another GP a couple weeks. What's that? Next week, actually?
It's next weekend.
So 2 GPs that are coming up that are Modern related. And then, of course, Star City when they have their classics for Modern and everything like that. But I have the feeling that we're going to still see a variety of decks in the top 8.
I hope so.
We might have that like, oh, okay, we have 2 or 3 of the same deck, but 5 different ones, right? Or 6 different decks, right? I think that's my prediction, at least for the next coming Modern events that will be taking place.
I think it's still going to be aggro based at the end of the day. Again, Modern is a turn 4 format. The decks that are trying to grind out wins are going to be a little less frequent, especially in the top 8.
Yeah.
And even though Luis did everything lined up for him, he was able to win. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think that Lantern Control is going to see much of an uptick. There may be some, but I still think that, the people that are playing the deck, they're the ones that are also coming out and going, yeah, this deck is great, but holy moly.
Yes.
Like, I had to give like every ounce of my energy to play this deck.
Yeah.
And that would deter me in a heartbeat. If somebody, if Luis came out and been like, yeah, this deck's tough. I'm like, yeah, I believe you. Good job. You did it. I'm going to continue doing whatever it is that I'm doing.
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the Modern Pro Tour. I think Wizards should continue to have Modern as a Pro Tour.
I think it's great to give the pros that chance to be able to play in such a fun format like a Wild West. I know there's some very vocal pros that are against it, but I think, Wizards also has been very hesitant because their main focus is to make money, right? Modern doesn't necessarily make money when it comes to selling and purchasing product, stuff like that. So, but I think it's for viewers' sake, for people that play Modern, I think it's one of the best formats. The viewers showed for the amount of people that were watching it. Even just the Swiss event was getting like close to, if not the same numbers as previous top 8 for like standard event. And that's just on Swiss. So it's like, it's cool to see that Modern is doing so well. But that's kind of our main topics that we wanted to talk about for tonight's show. Just kind of, dive into some decks, talk about some of the results, stuff like that. So we'll do some quick shout outs real quick all night. So, Brett, why don't you start things out? Where can people find you other than, of course, on In Response To and Modern Magic Mondays?
Yeah, so I'm kind of all over the internet. You can actually find me on Twitter at Farm of Zuranar, as well as on Twitch, twitch.tv/Farm of Zuranar. Basically, Farm of Zuranar is where you Google, and that gets you to all the different places. I just do a lot of streaming, retro video games, speedrunning, as well as, all of this Magic stuff. It's great to be able to talk about it. How about you?
So I'm Nan Man of the Real Nan Man, as you guys will see. Again, I've got stuff for Modern Magic Mondays, Monday 6:30 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch and YouTube at the same thing. On my original channel, youtube.com/nanman, we do have our Modern Meta Breakdown, which comes up every Thursday. So we sit there and talk about a deck, the ins and outs, what are ways to beat it, what are kind of ways to kind of help sideboard against it, and why the deck does what it does. And eventually I'll get back into doing more stuff. I'm starting to get back into StarCraft and other esports related stuff, so there might be some more of that coming up in the future. But again, if you like the podcast, like the show itself, make sure you're hitting the follows, subscribes, all that kind of good stuff. It does help out immensely for the projects that we're working on. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, guys, and we'll see you guys next game.
See you.